Hi, folks. This is Abel James, and thanks so much for joining us on Fat Burning Man, where we talk about real food and real results. Today's episode of the show is with Dr. Pedram Shojai, and he's a good buddy of mine, a fan favorite, often requested by you guys. And let's see, he's a physician, filmmaker, podcaster, Taoist priest, been chased by lions in Africa, and much, much more. This is a really interesting interview. We actually do something a little bit different. We talk about the health, diet, fitness industry and how you guys can navigate it to make sure you're following the good guys and not the bad guys who are trying to peddle their wares and basically confuse you into buying their product over and over again. So before we get to the show, I have a very quick request of you this week, and that's very simply that you go into Apple iTunes, find the podcast for Fat Burning Man, the audio version, and click the subscribe button. And if you feel so inclined, it would be very helpful if you left a review for the audio version of Fat Burning Man on iTunes. Now, I'm going to tell you more specifically why I'm asking you to do that in just a second, but if you could just take a quick moment to hop into iTunes and leave a review for Fat Burning Man, I would really, really appreciate it. So here's the quick backstory. I originally started this podcast to spread the truth about health and get a lot of the top minds in health who are doing great work together to help share the truth with you guys. My quick backstory is that I had been basically following the wrong advice, starving myself, over-exercising, eating the wrong foods that were recommended by my doctor, fitness magazines, diet books, and what have you, that were basically making me fat and sick in my early 20s. And my health was falling apart for basically no reason when I should have been in my athletic and health prime. When I looked into it myself and actually figured out how to eat and train most effectively, I lost 20 pounds in like the first month, and all of those health problems that I thought were just a part of being who I was, thyroid problems, high blood pressure, cholesterol issues, love handles, and the rest of it basically disappeared into oblivion. I stepped back and I was just like, well, that was pretty freaking easy. Why doesn't everybody know this? And so I started up this podcast and my blog, Fat Burning Man, tongue in cheek with a silly name that I'm tied to forever, to help spread the message of you don't have to be miserable and over-exercise all the time and take a bunch of pills that your doctor tells you that you need to take in order to be healthy. In fact, you can eat real food and you can train in a way that's super fun and really interesting for you and be happy while you're healthy. So also my backstory is that I paid off my loans by working in strategy consulting with a lot of the big names in big pharma, big food, and what have you. So I saw the way that their wily marketing worked and basically confused people into buying things. And often gave them wrong or at least incomplete information. So I wanted to be the antidote to that and just have real talk, no advertising, no sponsors whatsoever. So when I first started my podcast, Jillian Michaels was reigning at number one and, Biggest Losers on TV and what have you. And it seemed to me that a lot of that dietary philosophy was no pain, no gain. You have to be miserable. You have to starve yourself and the rest of it. So I wanted to swoop in and basically say, no, you can be happy. You can eat real food. You can train in a way that's fun. You don't need to be miserable or starve yourself at all to be healthy. In fact, you shouldn't. And so I wanted with everything that I had to take Jillian Michaels out of that number one spot for podcasts. And lo and behold, I did it, and we did it, I should say, because I couldn't do it without you guys. And in the past year, Fat Burning Man has won a whole bunch of awards, and we've basically been reigning at number one, or at least in the ballpark of number one of all health podcasts, and even top 10 overall on iTunes of all podcasts for many, many months. And a really cool thing has started to happen. A lot of the people who I've had on the show, a lot of people I know, like, and trust, and now you do too, have launched podcasts like Mark Sisson's Primal Blueprint just came out and totally skyrocketed up the charts. My friend Pedram, who was on this show, as well as Dr. Sarah Gottfried, started The Health Bridge, which has also skyrocketed up the charts. Dave Asprey, my buddy who's been on the show, I've been on his a bunch. He's also up there. And so now what we're finding is that all of a sudden it's wide open. That fight has been fought in a lot of ways. And now a lot of the good people are up there spreading real messages about health and not about misery. So when I originally started this show, I wanted to reach 1 million people. And that happened in the first year, which is absolutely incredible. And now we're up to about 500,000 downloads every month. But I've found that it's time to move on to a bigger fight. I'm going to keep doing the show, of course, and I really love it. I love interacting with you guys who are listening and seeing your comments on the blog and Facebook and Twitter and what have you. So I'm going to keep doing the show, but I'm also working on a lot of much bigger projects that I'll be announcing soon, specifically around the wild diet. So one last time, please go into iTunes, look up the Fat Burning Man audio version, and click subscribe and leave a quick review. I really, really appreciate it. Your reviews and subscriptions will help us reach more people to spread the message of real food, actual health, effective fitness, cutting edge technology, and most importantly, truth about health, so that we can really make the world a better place. Really appreciate all your help. All right, so on to the show with Dr. Pedram Shojai. We talk about how to tell the good guys from the bad guys in the health industry, why the absence of disease doesn't make you healthy, how to pick your friends to lead the life of your dreams, and much, much more. All right, let's go hang out with the doc. All right, folks, really stoked to be here with a returning guest and a good friend of mine, Mr. Dr. Pedram Shojai. He's a physician, Taoist priest, and Kung Fu Panda. He's the creator of documentary Vitality, the man behind Be More magazine, and he just launched a podcast called The Health Bridge with our good friend, Dr. Sarah Gottfried. Pedram, how are you, good sir?
Abel, it is good to be here. Good to be with you, man.
This is going to be fun. We're already having fun. We got our coffee here. We're just talking about rocking out with Dave Asprey, both of which we're doing this week. I love how there are the good guys in this whole health podcast blogging industry or whatever, and I'm so happy that we're getting together and having so much fun. I was just listening to your new show, The Health Bridge, and it's really, really cool stuff. Can you talk a little bit about why you started that up and also the massive success you've already achieved?
Yeah, man. Thank you. It's weird. We just, Sarah and I, we get along. We have this kind of yin yang thing going on where, our banter is always been kind of punchy. Yeah. And so we started recording these YouTube conversations about stuff, just going back and forth. And then both of our tribes were like, hey, give us more of this. And so we were like, wow, okay, I guess that worked. And so we just started doing a few more. And we just basically said, look, she's a Harvard-trained MD, MIT super science gal, and yeah. And I'm like a hippie weirdo, bonehead, yeah. Like traveled through the East and was a monk and did all the the qigong and all the stuff that I did. I'm a doctor of Oriental medicine, and we just we go East meets West meets best, and we just kind of like talk about what's up, and then kind of talk about best practices in between, and usually it just comes down to lifestyle and how we live.
Yeah.
But we just, it's mostly just, talking about serious stuff and then bantering in between about, just what we've seen in clinical practice and what we've seen in life. And we're just having fun with it. And then we just kind of banked them all and then started releasing, I think like a week and a half ago or 2 weeks ago, we released the podcast. Yeah. And then boom, it goes up to #1 and it's just like kicking butt and hanging out up there. We're like, oh, oh, wow. And so it just kind of came out of nowhere. We didn't do it to like get famous or anything. We just wanted to make it available to our tribes in a different format. But it turns out that if you're not too polished, it turns out if you're just kind of telling it like it is and hanging out and being real and authentic, people appreciate that. Yeah. And and that's you and I talk about that a lot, is just there's so much of this like coaching to like be like the media person and like this is how you do TV and radio and all this kind of nonsense that people coach us about. And you and I talk about it all the time. It's just like, man, I don't have energy for that. Let's just be real and tell it like it is. And it turns out that that's what people appreciate, because so much of what's out there is just fake and contrived and trying to sell you crap all the time.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love talking to you guys about that, because it's difficult to have that conversation a lot of times, because like some people don't get it, but we've had a number of conversations about the weird and wily ways that this industry works, especially because we both kind of have been coming up together, in a similar way in this wacky online world. But we never talk about this, but let's talk about it a little bit, because you came on the show earlier this past year, and every few weeks, every few months, I ask my tribe, like, which shows did you guys really like? Which ones did you hate? And the ones that they hated, we get rid of them. We don't have those people back or whatever. We don't do that format. But for the ones that people really liked, I'm totally down with that because it's usually the ones that I had the most fun with. And a lot of people came back and they said, Pedram Shojai, that was like the best show ever because it was just all over the place, totally real. And he wasn't trying to sell me anything. But can you explain, like before the call, we were talking about this. Can you just say what you said before?
Yeah, it's really funny and ironic, really. I had these guys who were like, coaching me on like how to, be better at all this stuff, and they used that show as an example. They start picking it apart, and they're like, "Well, there was no call to action, and you really, I don't know who you are," and and then they were just kind of picking it apart, trying to tell me that I suck at doing this, and I need to like, I'm not. I need to be coached into being better on radio and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm just a monkey. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not trained in radio. I'm not trained in any of this stuff. I'm just a guy that's been around helping people. Yeah. And so I was just kind of browbeaten into like saying, okay, well, yeah, I suck, and I'll get better and all this kind of stuff. And then you come back, you're like, dude, that was our #1 show. It was so powerful for me because I went back to these guys and I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying you. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like. My whole thing is, why don't you just be yourself? Why don't you just hang out and tell it like it is? And that's what people appreciate, because it's just the world that we live in is so contrived and everyone's trying to sell you stuff. Yeah. And yeah, sure, we all got to make a living, but you know what? I don't need to make a living by trying to, like be a little chihuahua humping people's leg all the time. You know what I mean? It's just like these... It's so gross how salesy people get, and I just can't do it. And so, that's why I think you and I get along so well is, we pretty much online or offline, whether this thing was being recorded or not, we're just hanging out.
Yeah. We're hanging out and talking about things that really matter. And it's really interesting being, I guess, a leader in this field. Like a lot of us are, like Dr. Sarah, you are, Dave Asprey, and a lot of us have very popular podcasts, very influential blogs and books and the rest of it. For a lot of you listening out there, the reason that I started this is because I felt duped by getting the wrong information from my doctor, from the media, from fitness magazines, and basically everywhere else. And it's pretty wacky what happens when you start coming up, because you get all of this money thrown at you for promoting these various products that may or may not work, and these sponsorships. People have offered me enormous sums of money to advertise on this show. But I don't believe in most of their products, and I'm never going to do that because I started this to be real, to be true. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. So it doesn't matter how big this stuff gets, because once you cross that line and you start just pawning your wares and doing it for the money or whatever the reason, that the power, I guess, that a lot of these companies and people who don't even own their names anymore, that's why they do this. I think it's really cool that technology, the internet, podcasts, blogs, and the rest of it has enabled the good guys to actually come out and spread their message. And I just want to thank all of you guys out there for listening, because that's what this show always will be. Pedram, that's what your stuff is too. I remember when we were actually at Dr. Sarah's house out in California, and you just turn on the camera with your video guy to shoot a documentary literally in the street, like out in front of her house, so we could get the trees in the background and the lighting worked. And, you're just like, okay, go, talk. And I talked, and I remember talking to you about that afterwards, and you were just like, I'm so glad that wasn't just like a sound bite of the same stuff that we hear you saying on every other show. Because most people, when you go on the rounds or you release a book or something like that, people are just saying, basically reading the back cover of their book over and over and over again, because that's part of their brand. But what value is that actually bringing to the people who are listening?
And what value does that bring to the people who actually hang out with them more than once?
Yeah.
It's so tiring being around someone who's so scripted, and everything that they're doing is rehearsed. And it's just like life is a dress rehearsal. Yeah. And you get to the point where you're like, dude, who are you really? Right. And I get a little afraid because those are the types of people that like sneak off and like in the corner of some like dark room or like smoking cigarettes or like doing something, you know what I mean? Like just doing something.
That's so true. It's weird, but that's true.
It's just like, they hide so much in their shadow because they've become a fictitious character, and they're so busy trying to be the person that they want to externally like present outside that they are no longer real. And so it's just, it's hard, man. When people are in character, it's really hard to be around them because you don't know who you're getting.
Yeah. So how do you What does that mean for you as you're making movies? You just actually let's talk about this. You just got to deal with Netflix, which is really exciting to bring a new
Yeah.
documentary there, and then you have a lot more stuff to look forward to as well.
Yeah, man, we're kicking butt here. Vitality has been very well received, and I mean, whole countries like the country of Namibia in Africa is using it to educate all the children in the country
How
for
cool is
how
that?
to live healthfully. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? I got governors of states talking to me about using it for foster children all over, and it did all the things that I wanted it to do, which was kind of get out there and tell it like it is,
yeah.
and talk about health in a way that's not. Um, we have this
Wrong.
very reductionist way. Wrong, right? Exactly. We have this reductionist look at health, and this whole thing is like, you know what? Do this thing called life, and then when you break, come in and we'll fix it, and it'll cost you a fortune, but we got this, right?
Hmm.
And anyone who's gone through the medical system has a pretty good idea that ends up bankrupting you and not working as well, as you can testify, very you do all the time, and it's just you get to the point where, you know it's a tragedy because if you wait for something to break, it costs three times as much to fix it. The opportunity cost,
Hmm.
the loss of energy and opportunity to do the things that you would have otherwise done in your life are gone. 10 years have gone by. You've replaced a couple joints because no one taught you how to run straight and no one taught you how to
Hmm.
eat right, and then you're kind of screwed. Like you're in this one down position, always trying to get back to where you were, trying to get your health back,
Yeah.
and you start to lose that flickering flame of vitality that keeps you kind of just charged and passionate and alive. And for me, it's all about vitality. I mean, I titled the movie after it. It's about that energy of life that drives us more than the sliding scale of health to disease, right? If you go to the other side of that, like, I want to scramble up a mountain and run to the top and beat my chest. I want to, drop in from a helicopter and ski down a chute and have a little, parachute, behind me and fly off and do all these kind of awesome adventure things that
Yeah.
you see people do on YouTube and you go, oh, well, that's really interesting. Those guys are crazy. Well, why not you, right?
Yeah.
And if that's a little too risky, then why aren't you, scuba diving the Great Barrier Reef or whatever it is that your dreams were? And a lot of times people don't get there because they just don't have the energy.
Hmm.
They could say it's time, but what you're telling me by saying you don't have time is that you actually don't have the energy.
Yeah.
Because if you had the energy, you would make the time, you would have the abundance, you could buy the plane tickets, you don't have to be at your, stupid 9 to 5 and all these things because you have power moving through you and you are a force to be reckoned with in life. And that's what we're trying to, wake people up to
Hmm.
because just not having a cough isn't health.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like that doesn't mean you're healthy. It means you're just not dying of a cough right now. And that's not that inspiring.
Yeah. Well, that's true, isn't it? Because a lot of people think of health as nothing, right? It's a state of nothing's wrong with me. It's not a state of uh, vibrant energy, which is what you talk about, right? Like, and you, anyone who has hung out with you in person, it's blatantly obvious that you are just overflowing with energy in the coolest way because it's not like obviously you're a really smart guy, you know your stuff, but you spend most of your time goofing off with other people and I think that there's so much to that. It's living like a child. We've talked about this in other interviews, but I just think it's brilliant and there's so much that people can learn from that because I think so often people, I know a lot of people who listen to this show are like very accomplished, high profile execs or whatever, or people who have just kicked butt in their lives. And sometimes it's hard to combine those two things, but I think you've done it in a really brilliant way. How do you combine that vibrant energy that might that people might be worried about it coming off as obnoxious or something? How do you manage that and still have people take you seriously, at least for the most part?
That's a good question because I think we kind of judge people in our world by their productive capacity, right? Like,
Yeah.
how serious are they? Is he a Wall Street dude? Like, who is this guy,
Yeah.
right? And so, you get to this place where our productive capacity becomes our value in culture, and that to me is incredibly wrong. And that to me doesn't say like, well, quit your job and become a bohemian bum either, because look, man, money buys plane tickets, money buys this technology I have to hang out with you here, and
Hmm.
and all the things that we're able to do in life comes from money and abundance. And to me, if you look at the word currency, it's a flow. It's a flow of energy, right?
Yeah.
And so if you get in the flow of life, then energy and abundance flows through you, and you're just more capable. You're more of a conduit to be able to like move power through you and be capable of doing things.
Yeah.
And so for me, I mean, it's a lot easier now just because it's just like, well, who's that idiot? Oh wow, he's actually accomplished and he's made movies and he does this and he does that. Oh, so he's an eccentric rich idiot. And it's like, whatever. But I lost a lot of hair kind of figuring that lesson out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I used to run a very big medical group, and we had tons of overhead and tons of employees, and managing doctors is a challenge to say the least.
Herding cats.
And we were just stressing out about when Blue Cross was going to write our next check, and just all the stuff that comes from like the ugly part of the medical world, right? And I wasn't very happy, and I realized I had moved away from the center of my being. I wasn't like the way I was rendering service wasn't in line with who I am as a person, and I had kind of followed the money in some ways. And so we were getting paid for diagnosable illness. We were getting paid for people being broken, and really there wasn't an incentive to get them better because the money's in the sick care.
Yeah.
And I had a crisis of conscience, and all things kind of fall apart when you have a crisis of conscience, and life kind of just had a big earthquake, if you will, and just shook me. My heart shook me out of that positioning, and it put me in a place where I really had to think about who I am and what my core values are and how I could be of service. And just being of service, I think, is one thing, but being of service while serving yourself is also important, because selfishly I can say making the Origins movie was awesome.
Yeah.
I got to travel through Africa and go, up in the mountains and, carve a bow and arrow and learn how to, live off the land and all the kind of things that I would do anyways, right? Because I consider them awesome. And it turns out when you do awesome things on camera, other people get inspired. Yeah. And so it's like I now live my life is a dream, right? I have a wonderful life because I've manifested that, and I think that that's where people can see that there's this tendency to really kind of bring our compatriots down, right? There's a tendency to, when you see someone starting to kind of bubble up, is to kind of grab them by the ankles and pull them back down to earth, because it challenges you to look at your own inertia, right? And a lot of the people that are in my universe, and I've been teaching Qigong and meditation and things that are kind of, serious on the Jedi side of the spectrum for a while with people, right? And, when you're teaching people to be Jedis, the people around them kind of wake up to seeing it. And then they want to just, judge them or bring them or pull them down, or their wife says, oh, there you go doing that stuff. I want you to come here and watch some stupid TV with me, or, whatever it is. It's just this inertia of their universe, because people don't want to face their potential, right, as they see someone coming up. And so that's one of the things that we really kind of coach people through, is how to deal with the people in your environment to inspire them to also step into their potential and not preach to them about what you're doing, because then you become kind of weird and preachy, right? and that's a challenge, right? Because we all know that person, right? Oh, I'm doing this cleanse, you got to do it. Oh, I'm seeing this chiropractor, he's the best. And then, you can see their eyes kind of roll back and they get into that kind of culty thing. And you're like, no, it's not about that chiropractor. It's about the fact that you're now taking a step to help yourself.
Yeah.
And that's the awesome part.
Totally. I would love to as well talk about another really cool project that you started just a few months ago. And a lot of you guys, if you're on my email list or follow the blog, you already know about Be More Magazine. But you might not know about the genesis of all of this. Can you talk about how that happened?
Yeah. It was interesting. We were all in a room, and I got a buddy that's been in the magazine business, and he's like, dude, you are an idiot. You know everyone in the space. Your friends are all awesome. Why do you not have a health magazine going? And I'm like, man, I got stuff going on, this, that, and the other. And then I just kind of left it open as a possibility. And then we were in a room at a mastermind with a lot of our friends. And I was talking to JJ Virgin about it, and she's like, get up on stage and talk about this. And I said, guys, here's the problem is, this health industry has gotten so kind of yucky. You got all these people that have pure messaging, and then you have all these other people that have all these products and services and stuff that, that want you to promote them. And, you're having to send all these promotional emails and get all kind of cheesy and markety to kind of help other people make money so they could help you make money, because at the end of the day, everyone's got to make a living, and we all understand that. But I'd like to create a format where we can all just kind of tell it like it is. And not be salesy, and just help people and just kind of hold that higher line and just help people kind of help themselves. And I kind of cherry picked the people that I thought had the strongest voices and kind of most powerful resonance in the room, and put together Be More magazine. And dude, it kicked butt. Like it's really like we have an app in the newsstand now. We're having an Android and a Kindle version come out. The readership is high. People love it, and it's because guys like you and Dave and JJ and Sarah and all just are people that we trust to tell it like it is, are just laying it out. Yeah. And not getting into the traditional formatting of well, this is how you would write in a magazine and this is how people who cares about all that. Just speak truth. And that's what Be More has been about, and it's been a tremendous success because of that. And I'm proud of it, but it's not for me to be proud. I'm proud of I'm just proud of all my friends. Yeah. The people that are part of it that make it great.
Yeah, and it's so cool because there really isn't anything like that out there. It's a mind share of this combined brain power of so many people who are doing such cool things. And I know like so many of you guys have been on this show, and I've had so many moments where I get that like butterfly feeling in my stomach when one of you goes on a rant. Usually how it happens is I ask a totally leading question and then you guys just rant. And that's kind of how I see Be More, because we all just like put these rants in there, and we're not selling anything. It's right now it's totally free for all of our following, and I think that's so cool. We don't really know where it's going or what have you, but right now it's this place. It's this safe place to actually say something, and I think the traditional channels, if you try to go through them with all of the gatekeepers, whether it's in movies or magazines or even articles on a big website online, they are either flatly rejected, completely rejected from the get-go, or they're edited into submissions such that once whatever your thing is published, it doesn't have any meaning in it anymore. So I think that what you've done with this and what you're doing with pretty much all of it, it's very collaborative, and it allows us to actually say something. So thank you for that. I'm really excited about all your various projects. You're doing killer work.
Cheers, man. I appreciate that. And like I said, it's just, I'm only as good as the friends I keep. And so it's just, I have friends that I like, and you and I have talked about this a lot offline, is when I meet somebody, I don't care like how big their list is and how cool they are, and like how many New York Times selling books they've written and all that. If I'm in a room with someone and they're sucking all the oxygen out of the room and they're an egomaniac or a narcissist or something, it's just like, who's got time for that? Who has time to hang with narcissists? You know what I mean? So the people that I cherry pick to hang out with are people that are just awesome. They're people that I would have a beer with. They're people that I'd go on a hike with, and they're people that I enjoy hanging out with. Yeah. Because to me, I spend more time with people at work than I do with my wife. Right? It's just we spend a lot of time with our work environment, and so if you're hanging out with yucky people, you are what you eat. And so, it's just, we're very fortunate to have picked out friends that are just awesome. And for you listeners out there, just really start looking at that. The company you keep is absolutely critical in kind of the levels of happiness you're going to have in your life. And if you're hanging with people that don't help make you better, really consider upping the game and hanging with people that inspire you to keep growing, because the day you stop growing is the day you start dying.
So we haven't really talked about this personally, Pedram, but I would be really interested in how you would frame this for the people who are listening. There are good people and bad people and people in the middle, right? And that extends to everything in life, but it definitely extends to like the health and fitness and wellness industry as well. For people who are listening, how would you recommend them going about vetting someone who they actually listen to and trust?
That's a great question, because, a lot of, and again, it kind of goes back to these people that are trying to coach me into how to be a better radio guy, on your show. And all I needed to do is just be myself and hang out with my buddy Abel. Yeah. Right. And we weren't even like friends at the time. We knew each other at the time, but like now we've become buddies because I love what you do and I love hanging out with you. And I think the answer to that question has to do with, and, excuse me if I get a little too hippy dippy here, but you got to drop into your heart. Yeah. You got to feel a message, right? And as someone is speaking, you have to stop and say, how does this make me feel? Does this resonate with me? Right. And despite the fact that, all these words are hitting me and I'm getting this barrage of like, messaging, and trust me, there's a lot of kind of neuro linguistic programming, and there's a lot of kind of like science that goes into like sales and all this kind of crap. And, everyone's trying to trap the zombies, right? Everyone's trying to trap the zombies,
Yeah.
and the good guys, as far as I'm concerned, are in the business of waking up the zombies.
Yeah.
Right. And so, is it an empowering message that's helping you and inspiring you to be a better you? Or is it a message that's saying, you know what, you're screwed and you need me?
Yeah.
Or you need my
You need
stuff.
a protein bar right now.
Yeah, this is the solution to all your problems, right? And if it's coming at you like that, then chances are it's crap, and they're just trying to leverage you because they're assuming you're a dumb zombie, and they're not helping you, become more empowered and more awake. To be able to make better decisions for yourself, and to really kind of become a conscious co-creator on this planet, right? They're just, and I see, people look at the consumer as cattle, and I think that that's the fundamental critical element that needs to change in how we run our economy and everything, is that the consumer is your neighbor. The consumer is you, and we're all here trying to coexist together, and that's led to us kind of killing the planet, and filling up, all these landfills with stuff that people don't actually need, because we just need people to keep buying stuff to keep this like tumor of a industry going.
Yeah.
And I reject all of that, right? I think that we need to all kind of bond together and consider what life is going to be like for our next several generations, and what does that look like? Does that mean buying meaningless plastic and throwing it away after a couple of years, or does it mean what, right? Mm-hmm. Joining together with a local farmers market, and starting to rock climb with people and appreciate nature instead of being locked in front of the TV. So I got a lot of opinions about that, as you know. But I think the short answer, the short version of my long answer is trust your gut and see if the message is empowering or disempowering. And I think that that's a really good kind of first entry level in to knowing whether this person's there to help you or if they actually just want your money.
Yeah. So give the people who are listening an empowering message. What's an example of that?
Listen, you have all the answers in yourself. You have the potential to wake up and be the most inspiring person on the planet instantaneously if you just got out of your own way and woke up to your potential, and nothing can hold you back. And so what any message should say is nothing short of that, right? Any message should be able to get you to wake up, get vibrantly alive in your body, get your mind kind of behind whatever your dreams and aspirations are, and don't take no for an answer, and get out there and kill it, man. Get out there and live the life of your dreams. And anything short of that is selling you short, and anything short of that is kind of, looking at you as like, oh, well, they're dumb and they're not going to do it, but they'll follow me. And that's not necessarily the way to, look at other humans. It's not a way to look at your brothers and sisters.
Yeah. And the insider's perspective of all this, it's interesting because Pedram and I have gone through a lot of the same like business health stuff. And it is a business, of course. We all are health entrepreneurs or CEOs or what have you. And it's really interesting to witness the way that different people approach this, because there is the I hate my audience approach. Like a lot of people have that. It's amazing to me. I love you guys. Like the way that I feel, I know Pedram, you feel the same way. Like none of this would be possible or worth it at all without you guys being intelligent and helping inform us of like what you need to learn about, what you're curious about, what you dislike, and what we can provide of value that you're not getting from, all of the fitness magazines and the traditional doctors and the media and what have you. Be careful for people like that. And if you pay attention to, the gurus or whatever, and you're honest with yourself, it becomes pretty obvious who the good people are and who the bad people are. And Pedram, I'm so happy to be, involved with all of those different projects and involving you in mine as well, because there are good guys who speak truth, and you're certainly one of them. And it's been a wild ride. Just in the time that I've been doing this show, it's been amazing to see who is attracted by your rankings, your numbers, your list size, and the rest of it, and how much leg humping goes on, to borrow your term, Pedram, because they want in on your game or whatever. But just be careful for people like that, because it does become pretty obvious once you start paying attention. Now, I did want to talk with you, Pedram, about the Health Bridge a bit, because one of the well, you started this podcast to combine Eastern and Western medicine. This is something that's been really missing from a lot of the messaging from health folks for a long time. That idea of Eastern wisdom and honoring that and combining it with all of the cutting edge technology and things that we understand about hormones and our bodies and biochemistry today. So, why did you decide to do that, and why are you the guy to make that move?
Yeah, why am I the guy? Who the hell knows? You know what I mean? Like, I just have, you're the guy. I wish I could remember this line, but it's not for us. It's a poor version of a Gandalf quote. It's not for us to decide what to do with our time, but what to do with the time that's given us. Yeah. Right? I happen to be in this position where it became self-evident that that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. And I just happen to be very blessed by having relationships with some of the top medical doctors, top science minds in the world. And they're in my movies and they're in our universe. And the more we hang out and the more we talk, the more we kind of realize that there is no left versus right or east versus west. There's just people that are interested in helping people, and then people that are just, interested in propagating a message or positioning themselves, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, I'll talk to someone about something, and maybe I'll talk about, like, say, qigong, right? And the first thing if they say, like, well, I don't believe in that, I'll be like, well, hold on a second, I thought you said you're a scientist, right? So
it's not there's this Santa
stuff
Claus
that's happening over here. If we're at church, we could talk about belief, but if we're talking science, then what do we got? Like, let's compare notes and see if the evidence is showing that qigong helps people, right? And I come from that world, right? I've been in that world for a very long time. I'm not a qigong apologist. I'm not the guy that's out there looking, I dress like a normal dude. I talk like a normal dude. I'm not trying to, take on a Chinese name because now I do, kung fu. I'm just a normal dude who studied stuff that's useful. And what happened was, as I got further and further into this game, I realized that no one was really doing it, and everyone's trying to mystify this stuff and make it all kind of like weird and esoteric, and you don't understand this, and I've got the ancient Chinese secret, and all these just games that people have been playing for decades, centuries really, on that side of the fence. Mm-hmm. And here I am hanging out with Sarah, and we're talking about things, and we're seeing eye to eye on so many things. And we were just having a dialogue, and someone's like, dude, why aren't you guys recording this? This is awesome. Yeah. And we're like, oh, I'm just hanging out with my friend Sarah, and it turns out that this is a conversation that isn't being had. Yeah. Right. And so that's really how we stumbled into this, is because it was what the universe asked for at the time. And we were just and that's really, I call it breadcrumbs, right? The universe will always place breadcrumbs in front of you. And if you're awake enough to be perceptive, you just step into it. 3 weeks ago, I didn't have any goals of being a top 10 health podcast or any of this stuff. I was just like, oh, we should put this on, whatever. Yeah. But if the universe asks of it, it becomes abundant, right? It just, it steps in. Like, your show kicks ass because it's what people want to hear. It's what the universe is asking for. So you just step into those shoes. Yeah. And I think as people kind of realize that about wherever they're at in life starts becoming pretty magical. Yeah. Oh, that's so cool. And listening to the people who really matter to you, the people who are following you folks listening, is so powerful. I just love that technology has gotten us to this place where we can ask a question of you guys, and within 3 seconds you're answering on Facebook, Twitter, emails, what have you. And it's so much fun to build this together, as opposed to the way that it used to be done in the fitness and health and wellness industry, in the way that most people still do it, where it's scripted and it's all like led by marketing teams, as opposed to real people who actually need some help. So Pedram, we're out of time, but before we go, why don't we tell folks where they can find you? Obviously, The Health Bridge is your new podcast on iTunes. You guys should definitely check it out. Dr. Sarah has been on the show a few times, as has Pedram, and you get both of you together and it's just magic. So definitely check that out. Where else can they find you, Pedram? I would say also go into the newsstand, especially if you're on an Apple device right now, and get Be More magazine. It's still free. And so we're going to try to keep it free. We're very excited about where that magazine is going. So, and if you're on an Android or a Kindle, just go to BeMoreMagazine.com and find it. And where I live, where I hang out, is well.org. That's our site. That's where we do all of our stuff. And we really are enjoying everything that we're doing, the films, all that. We got a bunch of TV shows coming this year and just a bunch of cool stuff. So I'm just stoked to be able to, put cameras on the good guys and tell the right stories and kind of follow the stories that matter and get to hang out with guys like you, Abel.
Oh, it's such a good time. I'm having a blast. It really is. Pedram, thank you so much for coming on. Obviously, we'll be hanging out again soon. And to those of you who are listening, please let us know what you thought of the show and what you think of Pedram. Hopefully, this wasn't the worst one after one of the best ones that you're on before.
That guy really blew it.
You blew it this time. Your marketing team's going to be really mad at you.
Told you so.
All right, Pedram, thank you so much for coming on. We'll chat soon.
Great to hang, man.